Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining our session. My name is Jibreal Hamenoo. I'm a principal systems engineer with Kuehn Incorporated, and I'm here with...
Hey everyone. My name is Matthew Kuehn. I'm a solutions architect here at Databricks in our manufacturing space. I've been working with Jibreal and Kuehn for a few years here, helping them use Databricks. So really looking forward to our session today.
All right, in today's presentation, we'll be talking about how Kuehn is harnessing Unity Catalog to enhance FinOps maturity within the company and also make our user community make efficient use of the Databricks platform. First of all, who are we? Who is Kuehn? Who are we? Kuehn is one of the world's leading innovators in material science. We invent life-changing products and technologies since 1851. We apply our unparalleled expertise in glass science, ceramic science, and optical physics, along with our deep manufacturing and engineering capabilities to make vital contributions that advance how the world lives and learns. We are more than 54,000 employees across the globe. And although we are headquartered in Kuehn, New York, about 70% of our workforce is outside the USA. Most of us, approximately about 85%, work in manufacturing environments, providing production and engineering support, bringing to life the inventions developed at our R&D facilities around the world. We have about over 10 R&D facilities around the world. Our global workforce is 40% women. That's a remarkable representation given the male-dominated history of material science, engineering, and manufacturing. For more than 170 years, Kuehn has continued to gain strength. And in 2024, our sales were around $14.5 billion. Even when you don't see us, because we don't have retail shops around where you walk in to buy directly from us, Kuehn is there, working to move the world forward. You've likely encountered at least 3 Kuehn innovations already today. Did you look at your smartphone? Its protective cover was probably from our Gorilla Glass. If you use the internet, those signals travel through our optical fiber networks, a revolutionary technology Kuehn invented more than 50 years ago that now can transport all the world's data at lightning speed. Did you view information on a video screen or TV or tablet? Kuehn makes that display glass, makes the display glasses for these devices. If you drive a car or ride a bus, our ceramic technology reduces automotive emissions and air pollution. Is your power grid fed by solar energy? If yes, it's likely travel through our Velo or Velocity glass vials. Our influence is ubiquitous and global, as is our company. Kuehn is best in the world at 3 core technologies, 4 manufacturing engineering platforms, and 5 market access platforms, which act like a business units. Our focused, cohesive 3-4-5 portfolio reflects how we bring our innovations to market and build a foundation for growth. This complementary set of technical capabilities and processes generates powerful synergies, allowing us to create breakthrough products and processes, and our customers improve the return on our innovation, investment, and reduce our capital intensity. Let's now take a quick look at the 5 key areas. Actually, I'll skip that for now and move on to the next slide. Kuehn's evolving business consistently serves growing industries, and these 5 ways we go to market are primary market access platforms. Display provides precision glass for the world's most advanced displays, delivering richer experiences on televisions, monitors, tablets, and mobile devices. As I said before, our optical communications include optical fiber and cables, wireless technologies, and connectivity solutions to carry information and ideas at the speed of light. At our life sciences business, we offer trusted products that accelerate drug discovery, development, and delivery to save lives, including labware, genomics equipment, vials, and bioprinters. At this point, I will just want to do a quick quiz in this room. How many of us, by a show of hands, have multiple subscription services, Netflix or something and all that? All of us, right? Almost all of us. I think all of us, really. According to Deloitte, the average household, four average households have multiple subscriptions. Netflix, some form of subscription or the other. And out of that 4 subscriptions that each household has, according to the Self-Financial, 3.3 of those subscriptions we don't use. So we actually actively use just maybe 1 out of the 4 average subscriptions we have. And for the last quiz question, how many of us use some form of a tool to manage our subscription so we don't forget to make payments, we don't forget to renew and all that? How many of us? Great. I see a few hands up there. I do myself as well. And in reality, LendingTree tells us that about 36% of us actually depend on tools to be able to manage these subscriptions. At this point, I'll hand over to my colleague, Matthew.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, so let's talk about FinOps, right? As Jibreal mentioned, we're talking about understanding costs, consumption, even in our daily lives, right? We might not be realizing how much we're actually spending, right? And this can go, transcends also to the technologies that you might use in your business, right? So let's take a couple minutes. Let's just talk about FinOps. Let's define it together and why we might want to think more about it. So FinOps, as the name might suggest, right, is financial operations, but it's actually a collaborative discipline across teams in a business. It's the finance team, of course, but it's also engineering and the business teams that are working with, on the slide we say cloud spend, but think of that as any technology spend or software spend that you're using, right? We want to be more data-driven in understanding how we're using a tool and ideally be able to drive that back to the business value that it's providing, right? So this is a discipline, a practice, an initiative in an enterprise that you can build muscle around to start thinking about your consumption a little differently, right? A few key outcomes or goals of a good FinOps strategy, what are those, right? Visibility first and foremost, right? I think maybe in the room, if you're a Databricks customer, you might know, how much you spend because you get a charge at the end of the month, but how many people here are understanding what that cost looks like in near real time, right? Or in real detail. So it's not enough sometimes to just know at a high level what that cost is, but how can we get more granular and better understand that? If we've got good FinOps in place with visibility, then we can start driving accountability to the teams that are actually using the platform or the technology. If I know business unit 1 or business unit 2 is spending a certain amount, I can hold them accountable to really drive and understand, okay, what's that spend going to? What are we working on? And that foundation of visibility really then drives optimizations, right? Can we identify areas where we're spending too much, overspending or overutilizing, our technology in not the best way? Can we continuously improve that to make it more efficient? Which then drives really those last 2 bullets, right? We talked about the collaboration. We're bringing teams together with FinOps that maybe don't work together that closely day to day. But when we bring them together to understand cost and consumption a little bit better, we can tell a better story to that last bullet point, which is the business value, right? At the end business level, we're driving and building data products. We need to understand the value that's associated with those products, but also the cost to implement those. And that allows us to really even out that equation and better understand if our investment is worthwhile. And we've got a couple example outputs there, right? This typically looks like a dashboard or some sort of report. The top one there I think is just time series, like Databricks usage over time. But it could also be your cloud spend. That bottom right is just an example output of maybe your AWS bill, right? So when we talk about FinOps at a high level, this is what we're thinking about. So why is this important on Databricks, right? Well, as most of you hopefully in the room know, right? Databricks is a cloud-based SaaS product, which is based on a consumption model, right? You're paying for what you use. And this can be very powerful and very beneficial, but it can also be really daunting if you don't have really good visibility in place, right? As you bring more workloads on, spin up more clusters, bring more teams to the platform, you can see that cost scale pretty fast, and it can get out of hand if you don't have a good foundation. We talked about those cost-saving measures, right? If we know at a better level in Databricks where we're spending, down to maybe the job level, we can take a look at the jobs or the workloads and figure out, is that right-sized? Can we rethink how we're scheduling a workload? We can, start evaluating measures to potentially optimize and reduce that cost. Which actually ties to the third bullet here, which is if we have a good FinOps strategy in place on Databricks, we can actually build really good muscle for our end users and developers for how they're consuming and using the platform. If I'm a data engineer and no one's holding me accountable to the pipelines that I'm building, if I'm trying to make a pipeline run faster, I might be more likely to just throw more compute at it, right? Who is a data engineer in the room and has maybe tried that before, right? But if someone has visibility into the cost or consumption that my pipelines are driving, I'm going to be more likely to think about what practices or approaches I can take to design that pipeline better, make my query more efficient. Do I need to figure out how the data is laid out, right? So we're going to promote more mature practices for our developers if we can hold them a little more accountable for the consumption related to their workloads. And then those last two bullets, right? 4 and 5 kind of go together a little bit. Really, if we think about 5 first, we want to, at a platform level, once we get to enterprise scale, we want to be able to serve our end users in a self-service fashion, right? The end users on the platform are who are going to be building the data products and driving the business value. And we want them to be able to innovate faster, right? If I'm, central platform or IT team, I can't hold every team's hand along the way to make sure they're doing the right things. So if we can proactively, with a good FinOps strategy, implement good cost controls and feel more confident, we're able to allow more self-service of our end users in the platform. So some of the problems that Jibreal will dive into here in a few minutes that Corning's trying to solve, but I think at an enterprise scale we see this in a lot of customers. First and foremost, we've talked about this, right? We see over time Databricks costs. Maybe you're bringing more workloads on, and you really want to understand those drivers. That's kind of that foundational problem, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we're trying to solve. But that second piece really comes into play at the enterprise scale, right? Databricks, like other cloud-based, cost models, you can, pre-purchase amounts of compute up front in like a 1 to 3 year period, right? And because of that pre-purchase, you might, receive a discount as a result, which is great. But sometimes that question of, okay, how much am I going to spend in a 1 to 3 year period can be really hard to answer, right? And if we put a really good FinOps strategy in place, we can then more accurately forecast out and feel confident when those contract renewals come up to make sure that we're right-sizing our pre-purchase plans. And then finally, I think everyone, or maybe you've heard of the concept of chargebacks from the platform, especially at an enterprise scale. If you start on Databricks or any platform and it's at a small scale, maybe IT foots that bill as you guys get up and running, but that doesn't really become scalable from a cost center perspective over time as more teams come online, right? We need to be able to charge back to the right business units that are consuming the platform, and if we don't have good FinOps and strategies in place, we can't do that accurately. So that's a little bit about FinOps generally, right? Hopefully you guys have a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish or the goals or outcomes when we talk about FinOps. But let's talk a little bit more now about the cost components when we're thinking of Databricks. This is more at like the overall cloud infrastructure level. We're kind of going backwards here. We're going to start on the right with our users or our applications, right? They're interfacing with Databricks in that control plane. That's really the web app front end that you're familiar with, right, with Databricks. And that's where you can spin up compute, start jobs, execute queries. When we spin up that compute under the hood, that can really look like two main flavors, right? There's the serverless top, running in the Databricks account. When we're tracking that cost, you really just get one line item of that Databricks usage. When we think about compute in your network, in that classic scenario, that gets deployed in your AWS instance or your Azure instance. There's, of course, the DBUs or Databricks cost associated with it, but there's also the actual underlying infrastructure. We're spinning up EC2 instances, or we're spinning up VMs. So to get that total cost of ownership of that workload, you need to be able to factor both of those pieces into your cost calculation. And then, of course, there's also kind of the indirect, there's the storage, right? We're sitting Databricks on top of the lake. It's a lakehouse platform. So we're querying that data which sits at rest in your storage. So if you really want to get that total picture, you want to also factor in the storage piece. Zooming more into Databricks specifically, right, there are a ton of different SKUs or product types, right, that you can do on the platform. You can spin up SQL warehouses for data warehousing workloads, model serving endpoints for Gen AI, or maybe you just have traditional workflows or jobs for ETL, right? With all of these SKUs, you're doing different things. You need to make sure you have a good tagging or observability foundation for all of these. And it also helps you understand the types of workloads or users that you're serving on the platform if we have a good way to track all of these, right? Are we using Databricks for mostly Gen AI? Are we using it mostly for SQL and data warehousing, right? You might know some of this, but this will give you more data-driven validation if you can track your consumption across those different SKUs. So my last slide before I hand it back over to Jibreal, right? How are we tracking all of this? How do we actually make this possible? Jibreal will talk about the specific Corning implementation, but just for everyone's awareness in the room, right? If we think about FinOps, it's really a data warehousing workload, like any other data warehousing workload you would run on Databricks or any platform. We're taking some data, we're modeling it and maybe aggregating it, joining it, cleaning it up to then report out and tell a story. In this case, it's a consumption or cost story, right? Well, the good thing about this data warehousing use case on Databricks is that foundation layer actually becomes a lot easier for you with Unity Catalog, with these billable usage system tables in Databricks. So we're collecting all of these billing logs and capturing them in this table, which then serves as your foundation for your consumption in Databricks. And this is what allows customers, we do have out-of-the-box reporting for you that makes this easy, but if you do need custom cost tracking or you want to implement a forecast off of this data, you don't have to worry about collecting these logs somewhere, right? We're making that available to you. So that's a little bit about FinOps. Hopefully this makes a little more sense as far as what we're talking about and trying to solve. We now hopefully have a better understanding of the costs associated with Databricks and how we can start understanding this a little bit better. Jibreal's going to take us through now how Corning's taken some of this to achieve some really great outcomes to understand their costs and their FinOps journey. So Jibreal, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Matthew. So what is our challenge? I think Matthew spoke a lot about that already. I'm just going to try and rehash them. Our challenge going into FinOps, having a strategy in place and all that lies with, we had little visibility around who uses our platform, who uses what, and who should we bill for what usage of the platform. And had in place limited governance. We started the Databricks journey with non-Unity Catalog platform way back before migrating to UC. So we had all these challenges at the time. And generally, there was no cost transparency. We couldn't tell who is using what and how much is every user costing us. These are some very great quotes that tell the story about the importance of data and AI in today's world. Organizations are finally realizing the use of data as an asset. Data is an asset, and that includes financial data, usage data, or every other data that you use to drive your business processes. Organizations seeing the highest returns from AI have a framework for AI governance to cover every step of the model development process. And finally, AI is now an enterprise essential. As such, AI governance will join cybersecurity and compliance as a board-level topic. So, today, data and AI governance is complex. On the left side of this slide here, we see our data consumers, our traditional data consumers, analysts, engineers, and ML engineers, and all that. They are trying to discover where the data sets, models, and whatever data, where they are, how they can access those data sets, and analyze them to drive business. But on the right side of this slide, really, is the data governance team, which is primarily focused on putting in place governance, securing data, and tackling who can access what and who shouldn't have access to what. And this is very hard to achieve. The push and pull from both of these two teams is very hard to achieve. And as you go through the process of enabling your data platforms and all that, these are the typical issues we encounter. Fragmented view of data and AI estate leading to reduced innovation. Disjoint tools for access management. As I'll tell later in the following slides, governing data on the platform can be very hectic depending on how you approach it. Unity Catalog gives us the flexibility to be able to manage access controls all in one place. You develop an access controls structure framework to manage your Databricks environment. And then you can, once you define these access controls, you can leverage them and deploy across multiple use cases on the platform. There is built-in auditing and lineage management for your assets. But perhaps the biggest improvement that I would like to talk about is the evolving of the systems auditing or the systems catalog. In Kuehn, proud to moving into Unity Catalog, we actually decided to do a homegrown solution in the first place, like built our own login system to track all classic compute usage, DBU consumption, and other backbone AWS infrastructure use logs and all that, so that we can tease out costs and distribute according to who is using what and what. That didn't pretty much work very well, and Databricks came up with Overwatch. I'm sure many of you in this room may have had some experience with Overwatch, which gave us the ability to monitor costs and all that. That also didn't quite work. So the evolution of systems catalogs, where all these logs on the platform are collected in one place for us, is a big plus for us, and that helps us to be able to finalize or mature our FinOps strategy to be able to track costs on the platform. So this is how our journey looked like. Prior to 2024, we were on non-Unity Catalog Databricks platform, and so we stood up a non-production Unity Catalog platform and worked with our user communities one by one through training and adoption discussions and all that to get them to move their data, their code, notebooks, and all assets from that environment into the non-production environment. By the end of Q2 of last year, 2024, June, we did a final cutoff to our production environment where all users within our communities were helped to move to Unity Catalog production, and by which time we retired our old environments. And that journey enabled us now to have usage data stored in our systems catalog that we can easily query instead of building homegrown solutions to collect logs and so on. What did we implement? As part of the strategy, we did a lot of user adoption, conversations, and training within the user community. Change management. And then we developed tagging and attribution strategies for the platform so that we can attribute usage to different company decided attribution tags, like division, what division or department the user is coming from, what business value the user is, the project, the user of the platform is delivering, what project the user is coming from, and what kind of application is the user using, so that we can, when we get to reporting, we can slice and dice our data and attribute usage based on all these tags or buckets. Key among the things we did was, creating a policy management process in place. So based on our previous experience with non-Unity Catalog and how users use our compute within the environment, we developed, for example, t-shirt size cluster policies. I mean, with about 3 years already on Databricks, we do have some background history usage information to tell which of our users require to use, single fixed node compute, on-demand compute, and so on and so forth. And also, we put in place a serverless budget policy. So when Matthew was speaking, he mentioned the compute plane, whether you are using a classic compute, which means you are using, in our case, our AWS environment, EC2 instances and all that, or you may be using a serverless compute, SQL endpoints or all-purpose serverless and all that. So we needed to put in place budget policies that have predetermined tags that we can use to bucket usage according to our defined tagging categories. FinOps on this platform is a regular data warehouse use case where you're collecting raw data, you mash it up, wrangle it into silver or so tables, and then you can further aggregate into gold tables, and then you can report off of it. You should be able to, beyond regular BI, put any other machine learning algorithms on it to actually do predictions and forecasting to serve your need, to determine what you'll be using in the coming foreseeable future. So within our environment, the systems catalog is one of our primary bronze, we can call our bronze data sources, because that is where usage, billing information, compute, who use what is stored, infra costs, giving us information on EC2 instances that we stand up and all that. In addition to that, because we use AWS version of Databricks, we use a lot of AWS services. Storage, S3 bucket storage comes with cost. Classic compute comes with cost. Network usage in AWS. If you have your CloudWatch or CloudTrail events triggered at the back end, all that comes with cost. So as part of our bronze data sources, we extract all this information from the AWS Cost Explorer using appropriate APIs to collect that raw data on every usage of the platform. And of course, we do have some other internal cost components that we push in to our bronze layer using Databricks volumes and so on. And then we are able to mash that data together, apply business rules transformations to create our silver and gold tables, which forms the basis of our spend visibility dashboards. So at the end of the day, we are able to get spend visibility dashboards such as this one here that gives us ability to trend usage over time, ability to trend usage by divisions, by projects, by business values, and of course, also be able to tell each individual user on our platform how much usage they have incurred within a given period of time. And we are able to trend cost by the various Databricks SKUs. So if we are using all-purpose SQL endpoints, serverless endpoints, vector search, whatever, we are able to tell because we collect all that data and mash them together. And most importantly, because we need to charge back to our divisions or our departments, we are able to tell what is the DBU consumption per department, what is the total cost per department at the end of the day, so that we can, charge back to the business. And our final, this is a very interesting, dashboard where our finance team working with us are able to tell this is the overall cost, both AWS plus Databricks usage cost at the end of the day. And so we can tell this business, this is how much we are charging for this month and so on. And at the end, because we are keeping all this data, Matthew mentioned earlier, we want to be able to forecast what will our usage be next year, next 2 years, so that we can lock in and take advantage of discounts that Databricks provides us, instead of the actual use and pay, which we all know in all service delivery is probably more expensive. Here are some lessons we learned, and I would like to share those. We think that with Unity Catalog, we have had more value, more visibility into non-value added costs, because we've taken time to invest in this platform, in this FinOps strategy. We are able to tell who is using what, and we are able to engage our user community and offer recommendations on the best ways to be using the platform to reduce costs, right? Of course, we want our users to be able to use the platform and deliver value, but we want that value to be efficiently delivered using the platform as well. It's very important to put in place tighter initial governance, so that you can be able to drive the community by offering recommendations on right sizing or the best way of using the platform. A well-defined tagging regime is foundational. If you don't have your compute, your assets in Databricks well tagged, then you will not be able to bucket your user calls or attribute to the right teams and so on. Cluster policies are very, very important so that you can keep a tab on usage. This can sometimes, create rifts among teams, but at the end of the day, because you have more visibility into the work stream of the different teams, you can now make available high-end compute to people who really need them, and regular compute and so on to others. Continuous user awareness and training on compute options on the platform is very important. In Kuehn, our Databricks usage is mostly self-service, and so we onboard new users who have almost no experience working with Databricks at all to very highly skilled developers and engineers. So continuous training to get everybody aligned is very, very important lesson that we have learned. Full cost transparency will require data engineering work. So Databricks, the platform itself, provides usage cost reports and so on. But if you want to have a full cost transparency, including your back-end costs and all that, this is a typical data engineering or data warehousing use case. You need to collect the data, build your bronze, silver, gold tables, and then throw a report on top of it. And same point at point 7 here, significant user training, education is required on the platform usage at all times. So the more you see what is happening, who is using what, the more you tailor your education to help the community make effective use of the platform. Here are some results that we got as a result of this strategy. We have been able to reduce the use of high-end compute, which we identified to be the key driver of our cost on the platform, by about 47%. That's a huge savings to the company. Through this FinOps, we've been able to work with the community to reduce jobs on the platform by about 25%. And as we speak, we have successfully, working with Databricks and other partners, been able to tag most of our assets on the platform at about 98%. And that way, we can confidently attribute usage to different teams, to different projects, to different business outcomes, and so on moving forward. Overall, we have realized about 15 to 20% reduction in our run rate costs on the Databricks platform, and that is a huge savings for us. in addition to all the data that we have harvested and storing, that we'll be able to use to predict or forecast our usage in the coming years, so we can get more discounts from Databricks as we move into the coming years.